Amazing. I'm so excited to be here and welcome all of the She Is Me Health Expo attendees. It's just such an amazing community and so grateful to be a part of it. And really excited to share about accessing freedom from stress with the power of your breath. It's such a gift to share breath work with people. And as a yoga teacher, I often share it with my one to one clients and really get to see how breath work can really change somebody's life. Right. And I was excited to have this topic, but just like some quick info on me and how the heck I got here and why I do what I do. So I used to work in law. I always call it my former life. Um, and I'm sure a lot of us have that idea or that feeling, and that's our own story. And mine is I worked in personal injury law. So I really worked in a sort of fast paced, go, go, go environment, dealing with people who were really at a very low point. They were injured or ill, needed to access benefits, fighting insurance companies. So lots of different things, moving parts. And it was a very confrontational type of work because dealing with an opposing side and yeah, and so I could get fired up, but it was working probably 60-hour weeks. And then I loved my hot yoga, so very much into my own practice. I was a runner, so constantly pushing my body, keeping it go, go, go. And then it was around 2015, I started not to feel so great. And I think it was around 2014, 2015, not feeling so great. And ultimately ended up with a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis. And that was really when I felt like my world bottomed out. And it started this journey, this healing journey, which I'm still on, still open to learning and navigating new things. But what came to light to me in that moment that I could no longer live the life that I was living. And it wasn't just about my career, it was about constantly pushing myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like pushing, pushing, pushing to the point that I didn't ever give myself time to breathe, to rest. And ultimately, my body started to react and not resolving or integrating things that would be going on in my life or integrating things from my past. And really, it just showed me how I needed to slow down and started to understand. So I have lots of reflections of, oh, okay, I did that. And as I grew, I got to see how stress was impacting me and what I was doing to not bring myself back to wellness. And one of the things I learned on my journey as a yoga teacher, I became a yoga teacher and I left law in 20, I think it was 2018, I finally walked away and went into yoga full time. And then I've now transitioned into coaching with a blend of my yoga because I love yoga so much and totally, truly believe in the power of yoga, in particular, restorative yoga. And so basically, what I did though is moving into yoga was where I sort of started this journey. I started taking my trainings, started to really come deeper and doing the work. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was the power of the breath. And when we think about the breath, it has this power to heal our body, to calm our minds, to connect us back inward, right? To connect us to the body, to the present moment, to spirit. It really allows everything to slow down and for us to be here in the moment and not worrying about every other thing we can think of. And so as a yoga teacher, and if you've done yoga or you've experienced yoga, you've probably heard it called pranayama. And that is a Sanskrit term for yoga. And when we look at the translation of pranayama into English, which it's never a direct translation, but it's translated to this idea of controlling or regulating and extending our life force energy within us. So it's such a beautiful way for us to tap into that life force energy. Like when you think about breathing, you're drawing in life force energy and you're releasing what is not serving you. And so I have found like breath changed my life. Like when I really started to access it, understand it, and then I'm watching it and witnessing how it changes the life of other people that I work with, of clients that I've worked with. In particular, I remember this beautiful soul and she had been in a car accident and she was a mom. She was like full-time employee at a hospital, very busy life, hockey, taking her kids everywhere, had this car accident, and really got stopped in her tracks with her injuries. And so I came in to give her private yoga lessons, and I spent the whole first session just focusing on her breath, teaching her a breath practice that she could use on all of that. And the next time I came to see her, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I actually slept." I have not slept in months because it'd been a while since her accident. And just using that breath practice completely changed my life. And I woke up feeling like I had some energy. And not that she didn't still have healing to do, but it really shifted her perspective. It gave her a tool to be able to access more energy, to decompress, and to kind of get out of that anxiety that she'd been feeling for so long. So before we dive right into all of the power of this beautiful breath, I just always love to touch on stress. I think in the annual conference, I talked about stress, and I think it's so important that we understand sort of the basics of how stress impacts our body and the nervous system. So, like Lisa shared, I'll be talking about how breath can help build resiliency into our nervous system and really help us regulate the autonomic nervous system, help us regulate that sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, which are both impacted with stress. Right. And so when we think about stress, just inviting you to, in this moment, think about, what does stress mean to you? When I say that, what is stress? Because each of us are going to have our own radically unique ideas, because we are all radically unique humans. And you may have experienced different stressors than me, and vice versa. So it's just really important that we tune in and notice, what does it mean to me? Like, how does stress show up for me? And so I like to think of stress as an imbalance in our thinking, right? I also consider this idea of when we are over responsible, that can create stress in our lives, right? When we're always sort of reaching out and trying to do everything, taking on responsibilities of everything and everyone around us. When we have anxiety, that can be an expression of stress. So you may experience your stress as an anxiety. At a physical level, it can really show up as complete exhaustion. When we're thinking mentally, it could be that we're distracted, like easily sort of shifting, not being able to focus, not being able to really get done what we want to get done, because our minds are bringing us into all of these different directions. At an intellectual level, it could really be a sign of frustration. And it was so interesting as I was preparing to connect with all of you today. This, I think it was Monday, because Monday was a holiday. I had this high level of frustration, and I had to do some reflection, because sometimes I can get in that moment, like we all may, well, I can, I can't speak for other people, but I can get sort of in this cycle, this like spinning wheel of stress. And then for me, it was coming out as frustration, because I was trying to do so many things for so many other people, and none of it was coming from my heart. I wasn't doing anything from a place of like heart centered. It was more of like an external. People needed this stuff from me, so I was doing it and not really slowing down, breathing, and noticing, am I really in a space to do that right now? Anyway, ultimately, it landed in this huge amount of frustration. Um, and I just had like a little hissy fit. Like I just had to release that frustration, because I could feel it in every cell in my body. And I just thought, oh, very interesting that that's how it really showed up for me, as I'm prepping for this talk today. And really, a source of stress is our thoughts. When we think about that, it really is this idea. It's the thoughts that we have can create the stress and the responses in the body. And so, really, thinking of two sort of types of stress: acute and chronic. Acute is in that moment, and you might feel it thinking about getting into a job interview or having public speaking. You can have that acute stress. It's like really in the moment, and you feel it, and you might notice some reactions going on in the body. And then chronic is this long term. It's like you just don't shut off that stress response. And so when we're thinking about a stress reaction that's happening in the body, you can think of it sort of as like, well, we're activating our sympathetic nervous system. So it's like we're pressing the gas pedal down. In If you think of our nervous system as a car, the gas pedal is pushed down, pedal to the metal. That's what my dad used to say. And so we're activating that sympathetic nervous system. It comes on full speed in an instant. It's like two beats of heart, like two heartbeats in your sympathetic. As soon as you have a perceived threat, your sympathetic nervous system automatically turns on because your body is amazing and it wants to protect you. So it's activating to help us cope with this escalating, threatening experience or situation in front of us. So when we're activating that sympathetic nervous system, you might notice some things physically. Your heart races, so you might sweat, you might notice some tension coming into the body. Your breath starts to quicken, like really starts to go faster. And then what also is going on in the body is certain systems start to slow down. Our immunity slows down, so our immune system starts to slow down, our digestion starts to slow down, our growth and repair of cells, our reproductive systems, all the systems that are deemed non-essential, because what your sympathetic nervous system is doing is kicking on, it's firing to get you into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. It's trying to determine what do you need to do to come to safety. So it's shutting off anything it feels as non-critical functioning, right? Your blood's rushing out to your extremities so that if you need to get out of there, you can. So that's how amazing our bodies are, right? We're meant to do that. We're meant to have that acute like stress response. We're meant to be able to come into that. And then what we're meant to do is to come out of it, right? We're meant to come back and move into what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and that digest place. And when we move, so sometimes thinking of your nervous system on a continuum, right? Going into the sympathetic, that fight or flight, and then moving, applying the brakes, and coming back down to your parasympathetic nervous system. And so we're meant to do that. And when we come into the parasympathetic nervous system, our systems come back online. The digestion, our immune system, everything comes back online, right? And it gives us an opportunity to integrate what just happened, integrate what's going on, start to reflect on what happened, and to be able to move through it in a more peaceful and calm way. And so that deactivation of a stress reaction is that the brain is no longer seeing that there's a threat or a danger, sends out this alarm cancellation, and then the fight or flight response starts to come out. But in the meantime, when we think about fight or flight and sympathetic, we're also kicking off hormones into the body. So when we go into that sympathetic response, we've got cortisol, adrenaline, that's kicking into the body to make sure that we can do what we need to do. So it takes about 20 minutes for your body to physically recover from this acute stress reaction. Your adrenaline can surge up to an hour, and it just is going to take time for regulation of the hormones, which can take up to 4 hours, right? So all of this stress reaction, it all happens automatically, but we want to just find tools to come out and we're not in it for a really long period of time. But when we think about today's world, this idea of multitasking, doing everything for everyone, working at home, always being connected, go, 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 feeling all of this pressure to, this comparison that I find I really deal with clients. It's like always trying to do everything for everybody. Then we can actually stay in this chronic state of stress, never feeling like things are done, having these long to-do lists, not being able to just let stuff go, staying in the mind, anxiety, all of that's happening. And so we're staying in this chronic state of stress, which can be thought of as this idea of you're no longer pressing maybe pedal to the metal, but it's like a low rev. And so Dr. Gabor Mate, who wrote the book, The Cost of Hidden Stress, he really talks about how even like if we have traumas that we're not processing or integrating or taking that time, it creates this higher set point, and then we're in this chronic state of stress, which we might not even realize, right? We might not even notice that we're living in this state of stress. But if we're not actively taking steps to care for ourselves, to slow it all down, to put ourselves into that parasympathetic state, we might then we're bringing in that chronic state of stress. And so when we're in that, it's constantly pumping these hormones into the body. It just keeps bringing it in, which can impact our arteries. It can impact our blood vessels. It can develop autoimmune illnesses. There's been studies that can say it can relate to cancer. It can really create cardiovascular diseases. So the stress can really impact how our bodies like physically are functioning. And then we think about how worrying and fear and like the thing with chronic stress, and I find it so interesting because I really try not to watch the news because I find that very triggering. but they're always doom and gloom. It's always, I'm not saying to put your head in the sand and not be like, see what's going on in the world, but sometimes we just need to walk away and not focus so much, because it can really activate, depending on how sensitive you are, it can activate that stress response in the body, which then creates those physical symptoms, and then we start rolling down that, bringing in the illness or dis-ease into the body. And we're not meant to stay in chronic stress forever. And what can ultimately happen is it leads to burnout, and burnout really is a severe disturbance of some vital mechanisms in our body. So it could be psychological, it could be physical, it could be metabolic, it could be your immune system. And really, so then when we get there, it's like a complete recovery takes a long time, and it takes a lot of work. And I've been there. Like, I've been there, and I really feel like my exploration into this was like complete burnout, and it took me years to recover. Um, don't get me wrong, I don't regret it. It's given me so much. I'm here today with you because of it. But this is the idea of like understanding even a snippet of what stress is doing. And now we're going to move into how breath can help create that freedom and help you build that resiliency into your nervous system. Right. So when the thing is we all breathe. Every single human being breathes. And my question is, do you consciously breathe? Our bodies are amazing, as I said, and we breathe automatically. That's how our bodies are functioning. But when we start to consciously breathe and really truly become aware of our breath, then we start to take back control and the ability to shift between these two states in our nervous system. Then we're able to be like, okay, I'm in this stress state, I'm anxious, whatever it is, and then you're be able to move yourself into another state, right? Into that calmer state. So I'm reading this book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I don't know if anybody's read it, but it was so interesting to me. I had to read this little bit to you because right off the first chapter, he talks about breath. Um, well, he references Fritz Perls, who is a psychiatrist and founder of Gestalt therapy. So make sure that I give credit. He said, fear is excitement without the breath. And he goes on to say, here's what this intriguing statement means. The very same mechanisms that produce excitement also produce fear. And any fear can be transformed into excitement by breathing fully with it. On the other hand, excitement turns into fear quickly if you hold your breath. When scared, most of us have a tendency to want to get rid of that fearful feeling. And we think by denying or ignoring it and holding our breath is a way in order to get it to leave. So fear and excitement come from the same place. The only difference is the breath. And so it's just another way, like another example of how powerful our breath is and how it can shift an emotional state. It can shift from fear to excitement when we take that opportunity to breathe and not hold our breath. Something I found interesting, I was reading an article that about 30 years ago, they had measured that sort of the average breathing rate used to be 6 to 8 breaths per minute. And now the studies are showing that as of today, the breathing rate is 12 to 14 breaths per minute. And they note that this increase, so that's almost double, it is double, but they're noting that that's because of the anxiety and stress that people are experiencing on a daily basis. So we're now breathing faster, right? So if you think about when you breathe, like I talked about, when you go into that stress state, you might notice that you're sort of breathing a lot faster, shorter into the chest, not deeper into the belly. And this is very common because we live in such a stressful and anxiety-ridden state right now, right, in society. And so a lot of times people are unconscious with their breath, and they don't really even know about their breath, right? Or what it's like at different times. So what it's like when they first wake up, what it's like after they eat. They've not really made that conscious connection to their breath. And if you think about it, our breath is so deeply connected to who we are that if we're unconscious with our breath, are we unconscious with ourselves? Do we know ourselves? Right? It's just something to think about. think it's an intriguing thought to consider that if you're unconscious with how you're breathing, are you unconscious with who you are at the core of who you are? And if you are, that's okay. It's an opportunity to grow and to shift. And so when we think of yogic breath practices, it's really an opportunity to access different tools. So there's so many different breath practices, and we're going to do a breath practice today, which I'm super excited about. Um, but you can use yogic breath to sort of engage your energy, like uplift you. You can do it to calm you. You can do it to calm the mind, to bring you out of anxiety. You can do it to fire up the body, to warm the body. You can do it to cool the body. So there's lots of ways that we can use our breath, lots of different yogic breath practices. And really, if we think about it, breath is the steward of the process of extending our life force energy when we take the time to breathe and really access that life force energy. And so we want to create optimal conditions for our health and well being. And when we don't, and breathing is one of those ways, we can lay the foundation for illness. We can lay that foundation for that disease to come into the body. And so when we change our breath patterns, it can change our experience. It can change our experience with pain. So there's a lot of research that's been done with breath practices being able to help alter chronic pain. Um, we can change our emotions, we can change our overall state of mind, and it can really change how we move the body, right? So that's how powerful the breath is, that it can impact all parts of us. So it's really such a valuable agent for change. I mean, we literally take 20,000 breaths per day. So we do a lot of breathing. And it's noticing, do you breathe in through your nose or are you a mouth breather? And again, if we breathe through our nose, we're able to filter out a lot of toxins. We're able to help sort of keep through the cilia in our nose, and there's a whole thing around that. It can help deepen the breath into the belly. It can calm ourselves. Shorter inhalations can sort of activate the sympathetic nervous system. Longer exhalations can help calm the system into the parasympathetic nervous system. And noticing, do you breathe deep into your belly? Right? When we breathe deep into our belly and allow that diaphragm to expand, I mean, our bellies, especially for women, I have been told, I can't speak for everybody, but I've been told for so many years, keep your belly in, keep your belly in. And when I found yogic breathing, in particular diaphragmatic breathing, and I was allowed to let my belly out, oh my goodness, the freedom and the shift emotionally once I grew used to it. I mean, and it took work because it was so ingrained in me to hide my belly. And when we think about our abdomen, this is where life comes from. This is where we grow a life. This is where our sexual pleasures arise. This is where our creativity is. It's the center of who we are. It's our hara, it's our intelligence. And 80% of our well being is in our belly. Why do we want to keep it constricted and tight? And when we allow that beautiful belly breathing and let our belly be open and wide and just allow it to receive all of that prana, that life force energy, right? And no longer denying that archetypal feminine energy by constricting it, right? We no longer interfere with the beautiful function of the core of who we are, right? So I just love belly breathing. So when we think about it, it's the art of learning our breath is a beautiful way for us to really absorb all that prana, all that life force energy. And when we think about optimal breathing, it's about really learning to breathe with the task that's at hand. So, do I need to breathe to calm myself? What does that optimal breathing look like? And then, if I'm running, that's going to be different. Or if I'm doing my yoga practice, that breathing will be different. So, we want to just learn this idea of this optimal breath because it's so powerful. And so sometimes it could be breathing less, right? And it's just sometimes we need to take a little like quicker breaths, like whatever that is. But it's just knowing that we can shift our breath to shift our state. So I'm going to do an exploration. I'm going to guide you through an exploration because the first thing, as I said, is that sometimes we are unconscious with our breath. So I want to share this simple breath awareness. So it's not about changing your breath at all. It's just about simply notice your breath and connect to your breath. without changing it. And interestingly, when I was first introduced to this, I'd love for you to notice when you start to bring awareness to your breath, do you automatically change it? Because I did, like I really did. And the teacher that I had talked about that's ego. That's your ego trying to get in there and get you to change your breath because it should be something different. So I'm inviting you just to notice your breath, right? This is a practice that will provide you a way to control attention and sustained focus, right? And it really is just about observing the qualities of your breath. And when you're in this experience, you're able to really come into your own radically unique being because you are and experience, does your posture change? How you're sitting? If you're lying down, does it feel different? Do you feel more connected to the earth? So play with, you can try this breath awareness in all different postures, sitting, standing, laying down, and notice how the sensations in your body change. Notice how the breath changes, noticing where it travels in, notice what comes up in the body, noticing any tension, notice your mind, notice emotions. Really allow yourself as you explore this is to be present and just focus on the sensations that arise instead of the breath, instead of focusing on your thoughts around the breath. Just notice the sensations that arise with the breath and not the thoughts that are there. Because it's an opportunity to notice the correlation between breath, between tension and sensation, or if you have pain, then noticing all of that. So this is a technique that chronic pain patients can utilize because it helps with that pain education versus a direct experience. And it gives them information. Like if I slow my breathing down into an area of the body where I'm experiencing pain, I can create maybe some spaciousness. Maybe I can be with it. Maybe I can just allow it to be where it is the way it is. So you can use this technique anywhere at any time and nobody will know you're doing it, right? So I'm just going to invite you to just soften your gaze. I love putting hand to heart, but you find a comfortable way, plant those beautiful feet on the earth. And I just want you to soften your gaze and bring your awareness to your breath. And so as you're noticing, tune in and notice the rate of your breath. So what is the count of your inhalations? What is the count of your exhalations? Noticing the depth of your breath. Does it stop short in your chest? Does it draw down deep into the belly? Is the breath rigid? Is it smooth? Notice any sensations that are activated as you breathe in and out. Seeing if you can notice the temperature of the air that you're drawing into the body. And noticing the temperature of the breath as it leaves the body. Is your breath continuous from the inhalation to the exhalation, or is there a pause? Notice how your body moves as you breathe in. And how does your body move as you breathe out? And as you're just simply being aware of your breath, how is your mood in this moment? What would you associate as your mood? Is there a color that you're associating with your inhalations and your exhalations? This is taking another round of breath. When you're ready, just opening your eyes, coming back in. And so that's breath awareness. That is that if you, as we talked today, find that you are unconscious in your breathing, such a beautiful way just to slow down, to tune in, and to notice. Notice your breath. Notice what arises. Notice what's going on in your body. Notice the sensations. It really allows you to come in to this moment. Okay, so there's been so much research done on how breath can create that connection between mind and body and the effects that it has on the physical body. And I talked about how breath can help with pain management. So there's been research done that it can help with pain management, anxiety, heart disease. It can help reduce hot flashes, can lower blood pressure all through conscious breathing. And they have done so many studies about how yoga breath can influence neurocognitive, psychophysiological, biochemical, cardiorespiratory, and metabolic functions in healthy individuals. And it can really show positive outcomes for people who do have anxiety or cardiovascular disease, respiratory disorders, things like that. Like they've done these studies that have shown how the breath is really supportive. So when we think of slower rhythmic breath practices, those have shown results of shifting the autonomic nervous system into that parasympathetic dominant state. So when you practice that, like once we get, if you've always been living like I think of it like, in my mind, I visualize it as like vibrating at this high state, the sympathetic nervous system. And when we slow our breathing down, we can actually shift into that parasympathetic nervous system, right? It can actually just start to calm this ourselves. But there's also been research done on the faster paced breathing, so such as the Kalabati breathing, the Bhastrika breath, which is a sharp inhale and exhale. And those have enhancement. They can enhance our memory and it can activate our sympathetic nervous system. So there's been lots of different studies done on different types of breath work. And there's a book, Yoga and Pain Management. Neil Pearson, I think, is one of the authors, and so much information in there about the breath. So helpful for me when I'm working with people and even for myself. So, but what I did want to explore today is called alternate nostril breathing. So we have a little bit of time left. I wanted to make sure I got an actual breath practice in. Breath awareness is a breath practice that, and if you feel more comfortable doing that, go back to that as I walk us through this alternate nostril breathing. It's also known as Anuloma Viloma, which means alternate nostril, or Nadi Shodhana. And that is really sort of translated to purifying the nadi or prana channels. So this technique quickly relieves stress and anxiety. And what it's doing is it's balancing the two hemispheres of the brain. So when we're in a state of anxiety, that's like part of our brain is overactive, right? Something is sort of on high alert, it's overactive. This is a breath practice that balances both hemispheres of the brain. So it can help us come out of that anxiety ridden state, balances the nervous system, and it can really still the mind and leave us mentally alert, but in a really relaxed state. And so it can also help get both nostrils functioning properly. Benefits are this: it can bring clarity, balance and calm the mind, and balance and calm our emotions, purifies the subtle energy channels. It can prepare the mind for meditation. It can actually even be thought of as a form of meditation. It can bring around a deep sense of calm and serenity, which alleviating those frenetic states of the mind, right? When our mind is racing. It can help relieve headaches. So if you're a headache sufferer, you could try this. And it can normalize our heating and cooling cycles of the body and even our circadian rhythms. So this is a practice that could be really good for jet lag if you travel a lot, if you're crossing time zones. So let's just, what we're going to do is I'm going to walk us through it, but just to give an idea so you can soften your gaze if that feels better and you're not watching the glare of the screen, is you're going to take your right hand up And you're going to use your right thumb to plug when we get there, to plug the right nostril, and then the right ring finger to plug the left. So we're just kind of going to go back and forth. Okay. So find a nice comfortable seat. So I'm going to invite you to do this seated. So really just get those sits bones side to side, back and forth, root yourself down. Soften your gaze. Come back into noticing your breath. And so I'm really going to challenge you, if you're not used to your breath awareness, just simply notice as you're breathing, does one nostril feel more open than the other? And just notice. Just notice with that sense of curiosity. All of this just is that playful curiosity of, isn't that interesting? All right. Now we're going to bring that right hand up. So if you have a desk, you can rest your elbow, or you can take your left hand to hold the elbow of the right. You're going to take that right thumb onto that right nostril. And it's not like a hard press, just a gentle closing of the nostril. Inhale through the left nostril. Take a pause and then close the left nostril with the ring finger and exhale through the right nostril. And that's all we're going to do. So now we're going to inhale through the right, close the right, open the left, exhale through the left. Inhale through the left, pause, close the left, open the right, exhale through the right. Inhale through the right, close the right, open the left, exhale through the left. Inhale through the left, pause, close the left, open the right, exhale through the right. Inhale through the right, close the right, open the left, exhale. Now I'm going to allow you just to do a few rounds on your own. And it's okay if you get confused or mixed up. Just find your flow, find your rhythm. One more round. When you're done, just allow yourself to release your hand and come back to that awareness and notice. Just noticing if the nostrils have changed. Noticing if you feel more balanced. Notice how your body feels. and your emotions, noticing your thoughts. And then when you're ready, just gently opening the windows of your eyes. And really, you can play with this and set an intention to balance the brain in order to help you stay engaged with your practice. But it's just really a beautiful practice that's useful at the end of a long day, maybe when you're just trying to quiet the mind and just enjoy deep rest. So I just thank you so much. And I really hope that you enjoyed that and just found some tools that can help access that resiliency in your nervous system and move from that state of stress to a calmer place. Oh, there's my website if you want to reach out and connect. I'm happy to do that. And yeah, and just answer any questions. Thank you. Thank you so much.